Call your psychiatrist, people. One senator's Freudian slip is destined to send you running for therapy. Assume you can still pay for it. Welcome to Occupy Democrats. I'm David Reddish. And happy April Fool's Day, or as we call it here in the States, Tuesday in Donald Trump's America. Good Lord, how has it only been 2.5 months? Okay, for all the chaos in Washington, the second Trump administration has accomplished very little. Yes, there's the stupidity of Doge, as Elon Musk does his best to cripple the government in hopes that he can use his power to privatize state programs and keep his companies afloat. This, of course, after the price of stock for his company Tesla has lost close to a third of its value since Trump took office. Trump's threats of tariffs also have not helped, as economists warn they'll trigger an automatic recession and force the price of everyday goods to skyrocket. To date, Trump's biggest achievement has been passing a budget to keep the government funded into the fall. That said, the budget still isn't finalized and must go through reconciliation procedures before it can become law. One of the major sticking points? Social Security and Medicare, two of the most popular programs in the nation. Republicans in Congress have assured the public that they will not cut either program. Budget experts, on the other hand, warn that trillions of dollars in tax cuts for billionaires baked into the new budget will require major cuts. Medicare and Social Security. Actually, you know what? I'll let Senator Chuck Schumer explain this part. I know he's not the most popular guy right now, so let's give him a chance for some redemption. Here's what he had to say last night during Senator Cory Booker's epic filibuster against the bill on the Senate floor. Have a look.
Isn't it incredible? All these cuts they're proposing in health care are done with a purpose in mind, and that is to reduce the taxes on billionaires. And doesn't it bother my colleague that these people who he's been documenting who so desperately need health care are going to lose that if our Republican colleagues have their way, simply to cut taxes for the very wealthy? It's my question.
Leader Schumer, I mean, that's the pain in these stories. The families that I read, the fear that they have, that they're relying on these lifelines that are going to be cut, services that are going to be cut, that are going to affect their beloved parents or their children with disabilities. When they ask the question why, is it for a noble purpose, is it for collective sacrifice? No, the answer that they have to stare at is that you're going to cut services for my vulnerable child or my parents in order to give tax cuts to the wealthiest Americans, in order to give tax cuts to billionaires. Chuck, people will lose health care benefits, and watch the deficit of this nation not increase, explode, which means the cost of our debt payments alone are going to be more than the very programs that they're going to be slashing for families. That is outrageous, cruel, unacceptable, and we have to do everything we can as a people to stop it.
For another question.
Yes, sir.
Despite this fiscal hocus pocus, this fakery, this trickery, which my colleague has alluded to, when they cut Medicaid, when they cut Social Security, when they cut Medicare, those cuts remain just as devastating, no matter what kind. Is that accurate?
So no, cutting Medicare and Social Security in this new budget will not do anything to reduce the debt or deficit, not if trillion-dollar tax cuts for a handful of the wealthiest Americans go into effect. Now, it's not a foregone conclusion yet. There are key differences between the House and Senate forms of the budget at the moment. And Republicans, of course, promise that despite the bills having massive cuts to Social Security and Medicare listed in them for the public to read, the final bill will have no cuts. At least, that's what most of them keep saying. Senator Bill Cassidy, representing Louisiana, and a doctor prior to his entering government, visited CNBC this morning to address ongoing concerns with the budget bill. Somehow, it didn't have the desired effect. Have a look.
Let's bring that approach not to just what Doge is doing, discretionary spending, but let's look at Medicare. Is there some way that we can cut Medicare so that reform Medicare so that benefits stay the same, but that it's less expensive, more efficient? I would say that there is, and that's where our opportunity lies.
Thank you, Doctor, for telling the truth by accident. It's about time someone did. And who better to speak to the impending disaster for the American people if Medicare and Social Security are cut than an actual doctor? On the other hand, Cassidy hasn't exactly shown himself a man of principle. He voted to confirm Robert Kennedy Jr. as Director of Health and Human Services despite Kennedy's anti-vaccine beliefs. Cassidy said Kennedy gave him assurances that there would be no changes to vaccination policy in the United States, something Kennedy has already reneged on. At this point, the bigger question is why would anyone believe Cassidy or any other Republican in the Senate when they've already shown themselves willing to compromise their own beliefs and, most important of all, the well-being of their constituents in the name of keeping in the good graces with Donald Trump and to give tax cuts to kleptocrats. Donald Trump wants to model himself on President William McKinley, who presided over the so-called golden age of imperialism. Right now, he looks a lot more like Herbert Hoover, the president who inherited a booming economy and left it in the ruins of the Great Depression. Between social program cuts and tariffs, how will the U.S., and indeed the world economy, look 1 year from now? April Fool's Day is here, and the joke is on the American people. This is Occupy Democrats.